said, do me a favor. Now that we're off welfare, we got off welfare. I said, go out and get one of those big decorative glass jars, right? I said, she says, what for? I said, I'll show you. Just give me a big decorative glass. She gets it, and I start
pouring the beans in there.
I pour one level of red, one level of tan, one level of black. I put some pasta on top of it. I tie a bow, and I put it on top of the refrigerator. And it's there today. It's above my refrigerator right now when I left my house.
That's awesome.
And I look at that damn jar almost on a daily basis, and I think to myself, I got myself off of that.
Welcome to another episode of Kaizen Cast, Small Steps, Big Changes. I'm your host, TJ Del Vecchio, and we're blessed today to have a gentleman by the name of Bill Ball in Ball Contracting that I met through two good friends of mine that are handy people that introduced me to him because I was having some roofing problems at one of my houses. And sure enough, we start talking and we have so much in common. A lot of similar stories, and we also brought faith back into our life at different times. But it's interesting how God works. But you know, I'm really excited today to talk about this because he's going to have some great stories, and we have similar stories. He's from Jersey originally, like myself, so we have some of the same stories, just in different contexts, I'm sure. But anyways, Bill, thank you so much for coming today. I really do appreciate it. It means the world to me.
I'm just happy to be here, and I got to be 100% real with you, like I'm real with everybody.
Yeah.
I almost didn't come.
I believe it.
And it's funny because, you know, you and I met over the phone. Some of the greatest relationships I have were started from just meeting people as customers or as business associates. And then it kind of grows from there, right?
Yep.
And you and I actually have this is the first time we met today.
Yeah, first time, everybody. Just so you know, it's our first time seeing each other.
Yeah.
But we talked on the phone for probably 45 minutes to an hour.
And that was it. So here's the funny thing about it. I told my wife, I said, yeah, I'm going today to get do some video at TJ's house. She goes, well, who's TJ? You know, so we started watching some videos, and I showed her, like, you know, a couple nights ago, I showed her some videos, and last night we watched some videos, and that you have on your Kaizen Cast. Yeah. And she said, oh, that sounds pretty cool. She said, what are you guys going to talk about? I said, I have no idea.
Yeah, we just talk about life, you know, and how we got here.
Yeah. And I said, so I was very close to canceling coming. Because, and here's why, TJ, you're going to understand this, right?
Absolutely.
Like, so I always say to my wife, Dawn, I say, some of the number one reason I've had success in life is because I show up.
Absolutely.
I show up. I don't know what to expect, but I show up with faith, and I show up just because I said I was going to be there. Yep. I told you I was going to be here. I didn't know what we were going to talk about. This is the first time you and I are meeting, right?
Absolutely.
And it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? So I've done a lot of coaching in my life to help people have success.
Yeah.
And one of the things I always used to coach people on was I would say, number one, you got to show up.
I agree.
You got to show up, and you got to show up not expecting, but you have to be there, and you have to be present. And if you say you're going to do something, if you say you're going to be there, be there.
Be there. Right? I agree.
So anyhow, I almost canceled.
Well, I'm so glad you didn't.
Yeah.
And just so you know, to be real, I woke up this morning thinking, like, man, am I really supposed to be doing this? Like, every time I do a new shoot with somebody, I get that anxiety feeling. Am I supposed to? And every time the person walks into my studio or walks into my house and we do this, it's the best feeling I've ever had. So I'm really glad you came. This is speaking from the heart.
And I'll tell you, one of the main reasons I showed up was not knowing what we were going to talk about, but I really pray, and I want to open up in a prayer if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
I just pray in Jesus' name that we touch somebody, even if it's just one person, through our stories.
Yes.
And it changes their life.
I agree.
That's my goal.
And the funny thing is when I started this journey, it took me, just so you know, it took me 18 months to get the courage to get up and do this. And I would talk to so many different people because I told you about my opioid addiction, you know, my anger, the drinking, and I would go to, and my wife and I, we still sit at the bar, and we talk to the bartenders when we eat, and we meet new people. And every time I would talk about my story, and they were like, you have to do this. So it took me 18 months after about 30 people saying you have to do this, and now here we are today. And I've touched people's lives already, and I know we'll do it today.
How many people have ever said to you, you need to write a book?
A few.
Yeah, I've had people tell me that my whole life.
Yeah.
And
Same.
you know, TJ, when we talked on the phone, we talked about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we did.
One of the things was that you and I both grew up in New Jersey.
Yep.
And that was no coincidence. There's no coincidences. Everything happens for a reason.
I agree.
When I left New Jersey in 2008, I was probably the furthest thing away from even being able to tell you that it was God that was in control.
It's crazy.
Back then, I was the furthest thing from God you could imagine.
I agree.
And so we moved here in 2008 to Florida.
Now, you sold your business before that.
Yes, I sold my business in around 2008, right when I moved.
Before we get into that, because
Yeah.
I know we talked about this quick, but I want you to tell the story when you were 26. I want you to tell the Jersey story when you were 26.
Okay, I'll tell you the Jersey story. Born and raised there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I wasn't born and raised there. I was born and raised in Connecticut, but lived in Jersey 23 years.
So I was born and raised in Toms River, New Jersey.
Yep.
And I never had a job my whole life. Okay, I always was just an entrepreneur. And I'll tell you how that started. When I was in high school, I heard a story about a guy, and it was a very simple story. He went out and borrowed his dad's van, and his dad's lawnmower, and his dad's wheelbarrow, and he went knocking on doors, and he made $1 million. and I went home and I said to my girlfriend at the time, her name was Dawn, and we were in high school together.
Yep.
And I said, honey, we're going to get rich. And she's like, how? I go, well, I heard this story today about this guy. And he borrowed his dad's van, and they went knocking on doors. And I go, my dad's got a van. He got rich. I can knock on doors. Let's go.
Let's go.
Her and I started knocking on doors at 18 years old
Come on.
in a development called Holiday City in New Jersey. And we just started knocking on doors. If you had a tree that needed trimmed in your front yard, I'd knock on your door and I'd say, hey, I'll trim your tree for $5. If your lawn needed cut, I had a lawnmower in the van. Yeah,
That's awesome.
And we built a multi-million-dollar business over time from knocking on doors. Just hard sweat equity, right? And hard work. But my number one driving force was to get rich.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, and it might sound, when I used to tell that story before I knew God, and before I knew money is not evil.
Yeah.
Okay, the Bible says, you know, money is. It says, the Bible's funny about money. You got to just pay attention to it.
Right.
It's the love of money that's evil. Okay.
My son says that.
It's true. It's not the money itself. The money can do good things.
Right.
But anyway, when I set out when I was a kid, I just wanted to get rich, only for the reason that it looked like rich people had fun.
I was the same thing. I was the same way.
Yeah,
If I wasn't going to play pro baseball, like, 'cause that's the only way I knew how to get rich, I was like, I'm going to make millions of dollars because that looks like a lot of fun.
It looked like they're having a blast. They're on the beaches. They have yachts. They have families that are having fun, and the money extends for generations.
Exactly.
Right, and that's what I looked at, and I wanted to build a legacy.
Yep.
Even at that young age, I was legacy minded. And it looked to me like rich people owned their own businesses. They didn't work for somebody, and they just worked hard. So I started doing that. I started working hard. I went to school for landscape architecture at Utah State University, and then transferred to Temple University. Became a landscape architect, had a design build company in New Jersey all the way up till 2008. But in the process of that, all that great stuff, I was young. I was about in my 20s. I was probably about 24 years old.
Right.
And my wife Dawn, who I started the business with, her and I had broke up for about 8 years.
Oh, really?
Oh, I became a madman. I was in college, and I joined a fraternity.
Yeah.
Let's just say I won some awards that really aren't that great.
You're right.
Okay?
Right. You went
from
bananas.
From being in my fraternity.
Yeah.
And I don't want to talk about that because I don't want my kids to learn about those kind of things.
Right. It's totally fine.
So I know they're watching right now.
Yeah.
But it happened,
Yep.
and she left me for 8 years. You know, I got in a fracas with some football players when I was at the fraternity. I played rugby.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to play sports football when I was in high school.
Yeah.
I got letters from Penn State and all over the place, and I decided not to go the athletic route. I did play rugby though in college for
Which
a bit,
was
which was
fun.
cool. It was fun.
And you partied your ass.
There was a lot of beer drinking going on.
A lot of beer. You drink out of the boot. I know the whole story.
And you didn't have to have any structure or anything,
No.
so it was good for me,
Yeah.
for a while. But then I got in a fight with some of the football players there. We had a fraternity and a football type rivalry going on. I actually ended up on the front page of USA Today.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and I had to drop out of school. It got really bad. And I ended up back in Temple University, closer to my home,
Right.
New Jersey. It's funny because when I got out of high school, my parents said, "Billy, we just want you to go far away."
Do us a favor.
So I went to Utah. That's
Yeah.
where they sent me.
Yeah.
It was about as far away as you can get from New Jersey.
I agree.
And so I come back home and broken up. I had to heal for a while because I had a broken jaw and I was a mess. And so I healed up and transferred to Temple University, and decided to start building my business pretty big, because I had a little business, but now that I'm closer to home, I started building it bigger.
Right.
And then one thing led to another. And the funny part about this is when I was a senior in college, doing my senior project, I had a very large business at the time.
Wow.
It had grown tremendously. So I'm a senior in college with this huge business.
You're printing money.
Well, and I go to class one day, and I had been awarded a pretty nice contract by a bridge, the Talcone Palmyra Bridge.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a wetlands mitigation project, putting plants into the wetlands and studying the tidal charts and working around. Sometimes we'd be working at midnight under spotlights because the tides were out. We had to work around the tides.
Yeah.
So somehow my college professor caught wind of the fact that my company was doing the project, and we used my project as the senior class project.
No way.
Yeah, and I realized at that time that some of these professors really didn't know as much as I did.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and
because you were in the thick of it since you were young.
yes. So anyway, I built a very large business, finished doing what I was doing with college, and I had a lot of highway frontage in New Jersey.
I know where this
And I had a lot of trucks parked there.
Yeah.
And I started getting phone calls from people wanting me to do certain types of work.
Right.
So being young and naive, I think I was probably 23 or 24 at the time, I got offered a large contract. And I was basically told that I want to be careful what I say.
Yeah.
Because some of these people are still alive. Okay.
Basically, if you didn't take the contract, I mean, if you want the contract, you have to give something back.
Right.
Right.
Like, hey, you want the contract?
Right.
This is a nice drink. You want
Right.
to buy me some drinks?
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So I got the contract,
Yep.
and then I got another contract, and then I got the opportunity to get another contract, and before you knew it, I had all these contracts. And life was good, and I was single, and making a lot of money, and I attracted the attention of a lot of people, and I didn't realize that they didn't have the best intentions in mind for my business.
No.
And through that, I ended up losing my first business.
Wow.
And it was really scary. It was a scary process because I was a kid and I was naive and I didn't know what I had gotten involved in, and thank God.
And you were about what, 26?
I was about 26 at the time.
I mean, think about that. Like, I thought, man, I was just thinking, like, you made millions of dollars or close to it, and the company got ripped away from you, and it was a really good company.
Yeah, by the time I was 26 years old, I had built a multi-million-dollar business, and basically, when I left, I had nothing except a pickup truck and a wheelbarrow.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was hard. That was a hard pill to swallow. But looking back and reflecting is sometimes the best way to be able to move forward, because you know how to move forward without making those same mistakes.
Absolutely.
So in that, I call that like the dark ages of my growing up.
Yeah.
Because it was between the ages of like 24 and 27 where I was losing my business and losing my mind because my business was going away.
Yep.
And my life was actually being threatened multiple times. And it's just unbelievable when you get tied up in that type of lifestyle. See, you and I grew up there, right?
Yeah.
So we just thought this was the way business was done,
Well,
right?
Always. on a handshake or this, and then you turn around and you're like, you just got burnt or whatever it may be, and you think the guy's your friend, and he's not really your friend.
No, I mean, it's the craziest, So we were talking before when I got here about, sometimes you feel like you're in a movie.
Yeah.
Well, when I was growing up, I felt like my life was a movie.
I agree.
I mean, some very crazy things happened right in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
I mean, my one neighbor was murdered with golf clubs at his car dealership because he wasn't doing the right thing in his business that he was supposed to do, and they killed him with some golf clubs. And I was 15 years old, and I just figured, I guess
This is how shit
you got to do the right thing.
Yeah.
My other neighbor hired a hitman to kill his wife, and it turned into a movie and a book.
Good Lord.
Oh yeah, so these are the things we grew up with.
Right. The things that you saw. Yeah.
He met the hitman at a party at one of my other friends' houses, and hired him, and there was a whole insurance deal going. If you want to look it up, the movie's called Blind Faith.
Okay.
That's the name of the movie.
Yeah.
And it was Robert Marshall and his family.
Like the world we lived in.
It was the saddest thing because I was friends with the Marshalls growing up. They were a great family, and these terrible things happened. But it happened in my neighborhood. It happened where I was growing up. And, when you grow up in an environment, you just think that's just the way things are.
Exactly. Exactly. Until you get out of there, and then you realize, you look back and you're like, holy shit, this isn't how the whole world works or the whole country works. It's just one little section in how you grew up, but that's all you knew.
Well, so you and I are so much alike in that I don't want to say God's got his hand on certain people, but I believe that some people are more attuned to that than others, right? I couldn't have told you back then that God had his hand on me.
Yeah.
I think it had a lot to do with my grandmother praying for me.
So I think I always say it's my dad. My dad passed on my birthday. I think I told you he died of lung cancer, March 1st, 2008. And I told you through the opioid addiction, there was 2 times where I was 300 pounds, and 2 times in the middle of the night I woke up with like choking almost to death with throw up in my throat. Like I don't even know how I calmed myself down to like not be able to, because I could feel myself like gasping for air, and it's the worst feeling ever, like almost to the point where you don't want to go back to sleep. Like it took me a couple of days to be like, okay, that was just like it happened, all right. And happened one other time, and I always think that my dad had his hand on my forehead somewhere.
Well, so there's real power to that, like the prayer that people give to us. And now I didn't know it at the time, but when I was going through that dark period of my life, my girlfriend Dawn, who had left me 8 years ago, called me out of the clear blue sky in must have been around 1997, and she called me out of the clear blue sky. We had kept in touch for over the years. We had talked and stuff, and we had went out for a drink occasionally once in a while. In fact, she was engaged to a different guy for a bit, and he found out that we went out for a drink, and he didn't come beat me up. He beat the shit out of one of my best friends.
No shit.
Yeah. I guess as a signal. I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, she breaks up with her fiance, and I'm single, and she calls me out of the clear blue sky, and she says, we used to go get waffle cones all the time when we were kids.
Yeah.
Right? She goes, hey, I was just eating a waffle cone, and I was thinking of you. Why don't you give me a call? Now, I had tried to get a hold of her and go out on a date for ages. Like, she just kept blowing me off, and she wouldn't take my call. So when she called me, and I was at this low point in my life, I remember I had an answering machine next to my chair, and I'd sit down in this chair at the end of the night and grab a 6-pack of beer and start drinking the beer. And I hit the button, I see it blinking, and she says, hi, it's Dawn. I was just thinking about you. I was having a waffle cone. Give me a call. I couldn't get to the phone fast enough.
And your heart was pounding.
And I'll tell you what, it was right then we got back together, and it was like 1998, 97. I think it was 97. And I just knew it was a God intervention, because I was just going down the wrong path. Things could have gotten really bad. And we got back together, and I had literally, like I said, a pickup truck and a wheelbarrow left. And
you filled her in on the whole story, because she knew
everything. In fact, she was on the tail end of it when people were trying to break into my house still and come get me.
Oh,
it was miserable, and so she was staying over during that period of time when I used to have to sleep with a shotgun next to my bed, loaded. And so it was a scary period, but she understood what I had gone through. She knew she read the articles in the paper when I had gotten broken up and beat up and ended up on the front page of the newspaper and had to come home. She saw that, and then I had gotten pretty well known in my town because I had a pretty big business. So right. I was on radio and TV and billboards, and I was kind of all over the place. It was fun. I was having a good time until I got involved with the wrong people. Yep. Well, so anyway, the point I want to get to here is that it doesn't matter where you come from. Like that all happened, right? You and I lost. I heard you tell a story that you lost twice. Yeah. Everything, right? I lost it. I was down to nothing. Yeah, I had the balls in my ass. I was down to nothing. I had a wheelbarrow left in a pickup truck. And still the same desire at 27 years old to get rich. I was already rich once.
Right.
Here's the thing about being rich once and losing it. It's great on the way up. The ride down sucks.
It's brutal.
It's horrible. Brutal. Probably the worst thing you could ever go through in your life, because it's not so much that you're losing the money. That's it, because money is just a tool, right?
Right.
It's that you worked so darn hard and you gave up a portion of your life for that.
Absolutely.
Right? What you gave up to achieve what you had set out to do.
And it was all because of bad choices.
Right.
We make bad choices.
And you beat yourself up.
Oh, God, always. And I always say this. I say this every time in my podcast. I say this all the time. And it's hard for me. This is one of the things, even when I was playing baseball, because that's what set me down the path of destruction. When I didn't get drafted, I had no failures in my life until I got to college and didn't get drafted. I started in sports was my life. Like, that's the only reason I went to college. So, and everybody knows this story in my podcast, but when I didn't get drafted, I got as angry as you could possibly be. I wanted to fight all the time. I fucking couldn't. And all I could think about is, okay, well, if I'm not going to be a Major League Baseball player, because chasing that money to me was I wanted to be rich. I wanted to be like famous. I wanted to have that. And when that didn't happen, I was like, well, the next best thing is Wall Street, because there's no ceiling. There's no ceiling.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Like, because I went into
nobody can control you.
No, and there's no in any sales job, they want to give you the plaque after you hit your goal. I don't want I used to be like, I worked at ADP and they were like, oh, here's your plaque for doing X. I don't want a fucking plaque. Give me the money. Give me, like, if the plaque's $25, give me the $25. That's what I used to say. Give me the $25. You know how many trophies I got at home that are sitting in my upstairs in my room that they're 6 feet high? I don't need another plaque telling me how great I am.
Right.
I want the money.
Put the money in my bank.
And then I realized, I was like, well, Wall Street, whatever you kill, you eat. And there's no, so you can work your ass off and you can make 300 grand, you can make 100 grand, or you can make 3 million.
Right.
And there's no ceiling.
So, yeah.
And
I've been just like you, blessed my whole life in that no matter how bad I messed up, I picked myself up and I moved forward, because you got to have that gut. You got to have it in your gut. You got to have that burning desire.
And I think
why would you get up the next morning?
I agree, but I think that's the part of, and you being an athlete, even though you didn't play in college, you could have. You had letters from Penn State. There's something about the drive in the competition to wanting to be great that causes the entrepreneur in us to be successful, and when we fall flat on our face, to take accountability. That's the one thing that we have lost complete perspective of life today, in today's world, that we have. Most people take zero accountability. Guys like us, we step back and be like, all right, you know what? We're telling our stories because we want to help people, but we also take accountabilities for our mistakes.
There's a saying that I've adopted, and the fish stinks from the head down. So when you're the leader, no matter what it is, if it's of your family, if it's of your business, if it's of you personally, if you don't even have a girlfriend or a fiance or whatever, you're the leader of you. Okay? Every decision that you've made up to that point has gotten you to where you are. So you got to take responsibility for it. Agreed. Right? Now I was listening to some of your podcasts, and you did that. You said you had lost a lot of money in the markets, but it wasn't 100% your fault, but you got to take accountability for it because you made some decisions, right?
Absolutely.
And that's the truth of life. And I think if I could go back in time, what would I tell myself? And you could probably put yourself in these positions too. I do it a lot. Because I think one of the main things for moving forward to be successful is you got to go back and reflect on what you would have done differently, right? I would have told that kid, Bill Ball, don't buy that contract.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
You're going to lose everything.
Yeah.
And a 24-year-old kid doesn't think about that.
No, you think about, you see green, you see money,
Right.
you see fame, you see there's more behind it.
Right.
You don't see the fact that it could all get taken away from you.
Right.
Because again, I tell my kids this. We always think we live in the world of instant gratification with the phones and the flick and the TikTok and all that other stuff that you go quick, instant gratification. That's not life. You built a multi-million-dollar business, just hard-working young man with your girlfriend and knocking on door to door. That's how you made it. Yeah. Not by then when you got to the next level of wealth, you thought the shortcut was, oh, if I take this contract, all right, here's a little bit back, but and it's all gonna work itself out. You made a shortcut. I tell my kids, do not take shortcuts.
Oh, and I could spend the next 3 hours telling you stories about why those shortcuts failed and how those guys took advantage of me, but use your imagination.
I agree.
It's every way you can imagine that they will get in there and take advantage of you and destroy your life.
It's unbelievable.
Right? So now
we come from us, not to cut you off, but we come from this, I know we're the same exact person because we have such massive hearts and we always want to help. So we can't imagine that somebody would do that back to us. Oh. And it happens all the fucking time.
Why would you steal from me? Like, it's like, why would you steal?
I'm doing what you wanted me to do, and you still.
I'm here to help you. Why are you stealing from me?
Yeah,
you know?
and it's
so now that girlfriend that came out of nowhere and called me that night turns into my wife. Okay, we end up having a child in 1998 together. We get married. Now back then, like I said, I was about the furthest thing from God that you could imagine. I had some spirituality. I was brought up Catholic. I went to CCD. My parents did what they needed to do for my whole life. At 15 years old, I did my whole deal, the confirmation.
Yep.
And then after that, never went back to church.
Same thing.
Got
my
married.
Parents told me at 17 I didn't have to go to church
Didn't have to go anymore.
I was like, fuck
You're
that.
done,
I'm
right?
done. Yeah.
So it was rules and regulations anyway. All I remember is a guy walking around. I was on my knees and he had the big hat on and there was smoke and water and it was boring, right? So we got married by the mayor of the town in a garden. Well, all our family there. It was a beautiful ceremony.
Right.
But I didn't need a priest. I didn't need a church. I didn't need any of that. Right. So I didn't understand. I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
Okay. But God revealed to me certain things as I went along the way. I like to call it the GPS, God's positioning system. Because if God would have told you, TJ, that to get where you're sitting right now, you would have had to been here, 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 and here, you'd be like, no, I'm out, God. Sorry. Not doing it.
Serious.
Not doing it.
Yeah.
It's too long. I want to go from here to here.
Yeah, straight line.
Yeah, like no.
Life's not like that.
Right? It's not.
It's a roller coaster.
And so we started off our family on the state of New Jersey welfare system. That's how we started. We were on welfare. And I used to hide that from people because I wasn't proud of that. But I knew, and I said my first goal was to, because we didn't have any insurance. We had a baby on the way.
Yeah.
I had nothing. I had a pickup truck and a wheelbarrow.
Right.
I'm like, I got to put my pride aside. Go apply for welfare, And we had, and it helped. It helped us when we needed it. Okay, in New Jersey, they're great. By the way, the system is great.
Yeah. But
it's only there to help people that need it, that want to help themselves. That's why it should be there.
I agree.
That's not the main reason for it anymore.
No.
But back then, we funny story is, we had. My wife would get these coupons, right? And it was for beans and cheese and milk and all kinds of things that you need when you're pregnant and
right.
to have nourishment and stuff.
Yeah.
There was health benefits with it and whatnot. And so one day I come home and I saw a bunch of tickets in the garbage for beans. The hard red beans and all the different types of cannelloni beans, all the beans. And I pull them out of the garbage and I go, what in the world are these in the garbage for? She said, well, I don't cook the beans like that. She says, I don't know what to do with them. I just figured. I said, do me a favor, take these coupons and go get all the beans that we're entitled to, please. I said, because if I'm starving to death one day, we're going to learn how to cook those beans.
Right.
Okay?
Right. Yeah.
Now, my first goal was to get off this welfare system, and I'll go back to that in a minute. So by the time we got off welfare, I had a stack of beans in the closet like this tall off the floor, right? And we gave them out and everything else. But I said, and pasta. They were giving away pasta, and she didn't cook a lot of pasta. So we had the beans, the pasta. I said, do me a favor. Now that we're off welfare, we got off welfare. I said, go out and get one of those big decorative glass jars, right? I said, she says, what for? I said, I'll show you. Just give me a big decorative glass. She gets it, and I start pouring the beans in there. I pour one level of red, one level of tan, one level of black. I put some pasta on top of it. I tie a bow, and I put it on top of the refrigerator. And it's there today. It's above my refrigerator right now when I left my house.
That's awesome.
And I look at that damn jar almost on a daily basis, and I think to myself, I got myself off of that, okay?
Yep.
Now, my first goal to get off welfare was to be able to get health insurance and to make a paycheck through my own business. Again, I never worked for anybody my whole life. I'm knocking doors still. I start over from nothing with a pickup truck and a wheelbarrow knocking doors. 10 years took us to a couple years took us to rebuild.
Yeah.
And then within 10 years, we had a multi-million-dollar business again. And we did it, and we sold it in 2008. Now we're about 38 years old. Now at this point in our lives, you know, I call myself a heathen. I was like a heathen. I was 300 pounds like you. I was 300 pounds.
Yeah.
280.
Yeah.
The max I got was 280.
Yeah.
If I showed you pictures, you wouldn't believe it.
Same with me. And you know, the funny thing is that I jumped on the scale. I saw 2.9, and then I jumped off because I couldn't believe
290?
it. 290. It was probably 299, but I jumped off. I had a 2. It didn't have a 3 handle on it, but I'm pretty sure I was pretty close to 3 than I was to 290. I was closer to 300. Yeah. And I couldn't believe it, and I jumped off.
It's hard to believe looking at you now.
Oh, I know.
I saw the pictures though.
Yeah. I mean, I went down. I lost 100 pounds, and now I put on about 15, 18 pounds of muscle back on, and my life is completely different now than it was.
It's a miracle, man.
It is.
That you were able to pull yourself away from that.
The opioids were the hardest thing in my life to really, like, to be completely honest with you, like the 5 weeks I lived in hell. And I saw the devil eye to eye a few times in the middle of the night. Like, he was like, go back to the pills. I know, like, I remember saying, the pills will be easier. You just take the pills. And I fought with myself because I quit cold turkey. I didn't even go to rehab. I was like, first of all, I was too embarrassed. I had 3 kids and adopted son who was kind of, you know, he's not fully adopted, but lived with us junior and senior year. So I'm like, I'm taking care of 4 kids. Everybody in the town knew me. You know, I worked on Wall Street. I had a really good job. I coached all the kids in sports and baseball and basketball. So I was like, there's no fucking way I'm not letting anybody know. I've already fucked up once. I went broke when the kids were, you know, infants. My ex-wife didn't really know that I was doing it. So I was like, I got to just figure this fucking thing out myself. And I literally, again, not spiritual, but I turned to my dad. I was in Miami, partying my balls off. And somebody said, I was my temper, like I have a very short temper. I'm much better now, but it used to be like crazy short. And I was like a roller coaster because of the pills too, and the drinking. And that was an escape for me mostly because of the anxiety. I didn't know I had it because I would just bury it in that shit. Mm-hmm. And now I wake up with it and I deal with it and I go to the gym and I figure it out. It's still there. I got to deal with it every day, but I just deal with it in different ways. But somebody turned to me in Miami and was like, it's from the pills, just like that, pointed in my forehead. And I was like, I swear to you. And I was like, first of all, how did that person even know I was taking them, right? And then I was like, okay, all right. So that night, I went out on the balcony. I took a bottle of vodka. I sat down on the balcony and I just looked up at my pops and I was like, okay, next step, pops, is heroin. And then after that, I won't see my kids again. I'll be dead. So I decided the next morning I woke up. I took the pills. I dumped them in the toilet. It was costing me $5,000 a month on the street. $5,000 a month, 30 milligram oxy, 6 to 10 a day. And I'm blessed that how did I not get fentanyl in those fucking things?
Right.
Ever. And drinking like what people don't understand about opioids is that when you drink, it enhances your drinking levels to like, you could drink 10 times the amount. I already had a wooden leg. So like, If people, I would walk into a bar, and the pints of beer, they would fill up the vodka glass 3/4 of the way and then splash it with little cranberry. And I would drink 3 or 4 of those before I went home.
So when was the last time you took a pill?
16.
2016.
I quit right when I got home from Miami. I dumped the majority of them in the toilet. I took a little bottle home that I had left in them. There wasn't any Oxy in there. There was Vicodin and a few other. It was like a fucking medical bag in me. That bag is gone. That bag has more stories in it than. So, and I took it home with me, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna wean myself off, just because if I was on the plane or whatever, I would have a drink. I'd take a pill. I couldn't function without them. So I was like, at least if I get home, I'll be able to deal. So I like for 2 days, I kind of weaned myself off, and then I just threw them in the trash. And I'm like, all right, here we go. And I knew it was going to be fucking hell. And it was hell. Like, there was a point in my time where, like, one morning I woke up, literally, I thought I was paralyzed.
Wow.
My nervous system and the nerves and everything, my head felt like it was 5,000 pounds. I couldn't pick my head up off the pillow. I basically rolled myself off the bed, fell flat on my face, and then push myself up, and it felt like the worst possible. You know how people feel when they get COVID now? It was like that times like 10.
So the best way I could explain that, based on my reflection back on what's happened to me in my life, is that the bigger your purpose in life, the harder the devil's going to try to attack you and kill you.
Yeah.
And you got attacked hard, right?
Hard.
Yeah, and it's because you have a purpose. And here's the thing: you're 52.
Yes, sir.
I'm 55.
Yeah.
It took me up to this point in my life to be able to reflect back and think about things, to be able to move forward and understand that there is a purpose. I don't think God wakes me up at 3 o'clock every morning to go sell roofs.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I don't think God wakes you up every day to make a lot of money on Wall Street. Maybe to help other people make money on Wall Street. Maybe to teach other people what you know. Who knows?
Yeah.
I know every day I'm trying to walk into that purpose more and more. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure that out myself.
Yeah.
And eliminate that part of me, that the selfish part of, like, the money part of. I love money, but I don't want it to be the be all end all. Like, I need to stay in the moment, like with my kids, with my wife now, all the other things that I was missing in my life because I did nothing but chase the money.
Right.
And like you said, money's great, but if you fall in love with it, that's the
evil part.
That's the evil
yeah,
part.
and it's hard to.
When you start worshiping money.
Yeah. So the best way I could explain it is like this for people that might not understand where we're coming from, because, if you try to explain that to a 19-year-old, like I was at one point,
Yeah.
I'd be like, "What are you, crazy?" But money's just a tool to get you to your goal.
Yeah.
And nowadays you don't even touch money like we used to,
No.
right? It's just numbers.
It's just numbers.
My credit card had gotten to a ridiculous level in less than a month because I had made a lot of large purchases, right? And so thank God I had the money to pay it off. So I looked at the credit card balance. I was like, my God, that's a big balance,
Yeah.
And I went over and I went onto the computer and I clicked transfer.
Boom.
And it was done.
Done.